Hi guys, and welcome to the long-awaited second episode of my What If series. And this time, I'm going to be asking the question, what if there was a live-action Ageless Beauty series? So let's get on with it. Okay, now before I get on to this what if scenario, an explanation as to what Ageless Beauty actually is, for those who might not know. Ageless Beauty was an animated web series I was making with Plotagon for my old channel, for the original incarnation of my Plotagon universe, about a group of immortals who are granted their powers by divine intervention by the gods of that version of the universe, the Guardians, to help them protect the universe. And they were normally approached about it at the age of 25, and they could still sire offspring. But every time a normal person witnessed their death, they would respawn and have to change their name and information of when they were born to keep it up. So, and they could opt out by retiring from the divine vocation, at which point they would go back to aging as normal, or they could do an escape clause, which would rapidly age them to the point of their deaths. Now, for this what if scenario, this episode of this series is actually a follow up to my Cast This, Recast That episode, where I imagined a casting call for the series. And what I'd imagine this being, hypothetically, is a 6-part mini-series to start things off, with each episode being up to an hour to an hour and 15 minutes per episode, introducing the characters and their world and what they stand for. So, episode 1 would introduce our two main immortals who are stationed in a fictional area that is as yet unnamed. Amber Coleman and Sydney Aldershot are the guardians assigned to protect this neighborhood. And they are introduced as being born 700 years apart from one another. Amber would be 855 by the start of this, and Sydney would be 1555. And Amber has already married and sired a daughter, Taylor, who at this point would be a teenage girl, around 15 years old. Now, on the timeline for the show, this season would take place in 2018. And Amber and Sydney are protecting the neighborhood from any kind of trouble that might be happening. They protect it from crime and they actually are, by honour, allowed to actually arrest people for their wrongdoings if they catch them at it. So this first episode would introduce them in the middle of a mission, out in the middle of the night, making sure there's no one breaking curfew. When they come across some troublemakers out in the middle of the night and try to apprehend them for their own safety. Only they're unable to, without the help of another one of their immortal friends who arrives in the town at this very moment, Rose Camfield, who helps them willingly with their task. And they manage to get the troublemaking teens off the street and back home to their parents. And we also learn how long each of our immortal characters has been doing their their protection of the universe task for. Now we learn at this stage that Rose Camfield is about 100 or so years younger than Amber. So she's around 740. Yeah. And towards the end of the episode, we meet the Prime Minister, Jack Daniels, who's only been around, well, who's been running England with an iron fist for about 300 years. Well, who's been around for about 300 or so years, but has been running England with an iron fist for up to 20 years at this point. Meaning that on this universe's timeline, he took over as Prime Minister at around the same time, Tony Blair would have done in the real world, and he's just stayed in office ever since. But unlike real world Prime Ministers, Jack Daniels is a good Prime Minister, and he actually gets involved, personally sometimes, with the people's lives, because he's also a divine guardian, he's got the guardian power of immortality as well, and he's helping to protect the world. So, moving on now to episode 2, This is where we meet Amber's daughter Taylor for the first time. It's a school day, and she's in class learning history. History from a history teacher, her own mum. Yes, Amber teaches history by day, and her daughter's one of her pupils, but it's not a star pupil, because actually history is one of Taylor's least favourite subjects. And she doesn't do very well at it as a result. But Amber wants her to do well and actually pass school and move on with her life. Now, we also meet Amber's husband, Freddie, here for the first time. And he's as yet uncast. So, if I ever follow the casting call on that up, you'll know. And we learn through flashback that he and Amber first met about 15 years, or in this case 16 years, before the start of the series. So around 2002. And he is introduced as a loving father at first, but we quickly come to learn that this loving father is just an act, as he considers Taylor to be a burden, making her feel unwanted and unloved. And we learn that he works for Sidney Aldershot at his company in this episode. And we see him, well, he would lose his job for being a coward, basically. So you're starting to see a pattern here. It's a mix of storylines from animated episodes, which you can see on my old channel. Okay, now episode 3 would have Rose Canfield step in to console, or to try and console, Taylor over the immense pain she's going through, well, emotional pain she's going through after learning her father doesn't love her. And this is where we also learn that shortly after Taylor's birth, even though Rose wasn't there to see it, Amber named her godmother. So she's Auntie Rose to Taylor. And this episode also sees the Universal first crossover with the Barrett family, as James, yeah, that's right, steps in also to try and console Taylor over the loss. And at the end of the episode, at the very end of the episode, well, over her father not really loving her, at the very end of the episode, Sydney and Amber begin a relationship. Now, I'd pitch episode 4 to take place a couple of months after episode 3. In this case, Amber and Sydney are now living together, and he is acting as stepfather to Taylor, and their lives are starting to turn out much better because of it. As a matter of fact, right now, he's taken the responsibility to treat Taylor to a day out, while Amber is sorting out the whole mess with a deadbeat loser of a husband. Sorting out, like, she's broken off with him at this point, of course, and kicked him out. And through more flashbacks in this episode, we learn a bit more of Amber's personal history and how she used to be Lady Emily Grey. And she first came into her immortality in 1189, putting her birth in 1164. Okay. But you could already have worked that out by the age that I've set for her at this point. Did I say 855? I did, didn't I? And if I set this in 2018, then actually she was born in 1163. Not 1164, and she would have become immortal in agreement with the Guardians to help protect the universe and the world in 1188, not 1189. So those discrepancies now fixed. And you also learn through these flashbacks when Amber and Sydney first met. They first met shortly after she took on the name. Well, when she first became immortal, she was still Lady Emily Grey, so they would have first met shortly after that. And, well, this is also when an arrow struck her through the chest, causing her to have to act on her immortality for the first time, respawning in a hidden wooded area, and then having to adopt her first alias of, well, her first renaming, which dropped her noble title of a lady, and she became Denise Stokerman. And that puts us as a cliffhanger leading into episode 5, where we stay in the past for this episode. And now we have moved ahead a few decades, and a few renamings later, the once Lady Emily Grey now goes under the name of Lara Stedman. We have now shifted the point of the past date. We've now shifted ahead to around the year 1215 to, well, the years 1215 to 1224. So by this time she has been living as an immortal for nearly 60 years. No, sorry, for nearly 160 years. Now, it's unclear as to what Sydney's original name was. But his name, after several respawnings, has become Philip Tucker. And they keep their names as they are for another 200 years. And around the 15th century, around the 1400s, they're both attacked and stabbed through the chest with swords, causing them both to have to respawn. And this is where they took on the names of Sidney Aldershot and Amber Coleman. So the origins of the names they have now. And instead of having to change their names again, they made it so these were their official names. And the episode then cuts back to the present. And shortly thereafter. And episode 6, the season or series, the finale, would just be a slice of life episode. A day in the lives of everyone we've met over the course of this season. And, well, there'd be no point introducing a new character here when at this point we wouldn't know if the show would be popular enough to warrant a season 2. So that is my take on what if there was a live-action Ageless Beauty series. Okay. Another live-action version of another one of my old animated series. In the next edition of What If, I'll be doing a What If scenario for one of my favourite franchises. Which franchise will that be? Well, you'll have to wait and see. But until then, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and have a magical time.